திருத்தமொடு காயகற்பம் சீர்கர்மயோகம் உடற்பயிற்சி தந்து திருத்தமொடு காயகற்பம் சீர்கர்மயோகம் உடற்பயிற்சி தந்து சிந்தனையை உடல் நலத்தை சீரமைத்து ஒய்வித்த குருவே வாழ்க. சிந்தனையை உடல் நலத்தை சீரமைத்து ஒய்வித்த குருவே வாழ்க. குருவே வாழ்க. குருவே
Be blessed by the divine. With the blessings of divine and Swamiji Vethathiri Maharishi, we are very happy to welcome you for the successful 14th session of Consciousness 360 conference. To initiate our conference today, we will start with a meditation. As always, meditation is the first step in the journey of our consciousness. We are going to have a guided meditation. Even if we have not learned meditation, we can easily follow the instructions and we can concentrate on our breath. Calming down our mind will take us to a new experience of self-realization. To conduct meditation and take us to the new experience, we have today with us our eminent professor of Vedathriyam, Dr. M. Ezhilarasan. He is the Associate Dean of Academics and a professor, Department of Information Technology, Pondicherry Technological University. Sir, I request you to take us all along with you to realize the self.
Thanks, ma'am. வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். Madam, is it audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Thank you. வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். Guru வாழ்க, குருவே துணை. Be blessed by the divine. Be blessed by the divine. Be blessed by the divine. The atmosphere around us is being purified by the divine power. The atmosphere around us is being purified by the divine power. The atmosphere around us is being purified by the divine power. The divine energy descends upon us. We are being purified and blessed. The divine energy descends upon us. We are being purified and blessed. The divine energy descends upon us. We are being purified and blessed. May the divine power protect us, guide us, and lead us day and night at all times, all places, and in all our activities. Salutation to Mother. Salutations to Father. Salutations to our Guruji, Vethathiri Maharishi. Let's start the meditation. Duriyam. Start meditation at Agni. Duriyam, let's conclude the meditation. Spread the energy all over the body. May the body and soul be purified. Auto suggestion. With the grace of the divine, we will enjoy good health, long life, prosperity, wisdom, and peace. With the grace of the divine, we will enjoy good health, long life, prosperity, wisdom, and peace. With the grace of the divine, we will enjoy good health, long life, prosperity, wisdom, and peace. Blessings. Bless your life partner. Bless your children. Bless your siblings. Bless your close friends and relatives. Bless your colleagues. Bless your enemies or evildoers in order they may change for the better. Vethathiriyam profounded by Vethathiri Maharishi, World Community Service Center, Temple of Consciousness, the Department of Research and Development at Aliyar, the Sky Trust all around the world, the Sky Meditation Centers around the world, be blessed by the divine. Twofold path. I in my life will not cause any harm to anybody, physically or mentally. I shall strive to remove the misery of others to the extent possible. I in my life will not cause anybody physically or mentally. I shall strive to remove the misery of others to the extent possible. I in my life will not cause any harm to anyone, physically or mentally. I shall strive to remove the misery of others to the extent possible. வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். Invocation for world peace. May the leaders of every nation intuitively attain divine realization. The boundaries of all nations guarded by the force common to every country. May all men live without rancor or fear, working for a living, all wars disappear. May the people all over the world find lasting peace, which fills their mind. வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். Invocation for rain. May the rains be copious and lakes, ponds, rivers, and wells, brim and overflow for the welfare of all. May the rains be copious and lakes, ponds, rivers, and wells, brim and overflow for the welfare of all. May the rains be copious and lakes, ponds, rivers, and wells, brim and overflow for the welfare of all. வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். May the peace prevail within us. May peace prevail around us. May peace prevail all over the world. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். Be blessed with the divine. Thank you.
Be blessed by the divine. Thank you, sir, for giving us such an experience to realize the self by calming down our mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, Consciousness 360. It's a weekly conference. It is an amazing platform developed by World Community Service Center R&D department to bring in together like-minded people who want to travel along in the journey of consciousness and to compile and consolidate Vethathiri Maharishi's teachings and concepts. In this journey of Consciousness 360, today we are here on the 14th week of the conference to talk on the topic Genetic Center. So, to inaugurate today's meeting, I would request Dr. Shaktidharan Paramasivam, sir, to give a brief about him. Dr. Shaktidharan Paramasivam Karunanidhi was born in Erode. He completed his undergraduate degree in Coimbatore Medical College and his MD at the National Institute of Health and Family Welfare, New Delhi. He currently lives in United Kingdom, working as the Directorate of Public Health, leading the responsibility of COVID-19. He is the graduate of Yale Global Health Leadership Initiative, USA, with an interest in addressing inequalities and injustice. He is an assistant professor in UK to explore the application of Vedatrium using Western philosophical and scientific methods. He is currently pursuing an open course with Royal Institute of Philosophy, London. Both his parents and his wife are actively in service with World Community Service Center. We are very happy to welcome you here, sir, and we request you to give your inaugural address for the session today.
வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். It is an immense pleasure and a privilege and an honor to be welcoming you to today's webinar on Genetic Center. this is a very important subject, not only in Vedathriyam, but world around the world, on the research on genomics and genes. It is commonly understood that genes determined the traits of a living being. And therefore, it has been a subject of much interest, particularly with the view that how can we, if it is already in the genetic imprints and the genetic code, how can we change what is already given to us by nature? But as the science has progressed, it is increasingly becoming a common knowledge. Am I audible to you now, ma'am? Is it okay now?
Yeah, you're audible, sir. You can
Okay.
proceed. Yeah.
It is increasingly becoming common knowledge that just because we have some genetic material doesn't automatically mean that those are expressed during one's life. And also, people like Bruce Lipton and many other cell biologists have discovered that the way that some genes can be switched on and off really depends on what is going on in our blood circulation in the form of chemicals. And that in turn is determined by our habits as well as our thoughts. Normally, our thoughts are in an automatic mode. And when we consciously try and change that and develop new habits, that in turn changes the way we live, changes the way we look at the external world and ourselves and our relationship with the nature, which in turn can affect the way that the genes are expressed and how well one can live their lives. Now, this is current science. Maharishi intuitively has realized this through the work of our ancestors. And what more, he has also given us a wider philosophy and even critically importantly, simple practices to actually understand our genetic center and improve what is there in the imprints with some simple practices which we are all learning from physical exercises, kaya kalpam, introspection, and consistently try to change our habits. Now today, it's fantastic to have Dr. Dhanapathi with us to highlight some of the things in much more detail, which is beyond science, which each and every one of us are going to benefit from and learn and develop more ideas about the relevance of genetic center, which is an invisible concept. It is beyond currently known science, I would say, and more to understand and more to develop this concept, both in Vedathriyam and also its relevance to the wider society. It is with these short words, I would like to invite Dr. P.Dhanapathi on our collective behalf to share his thoughts on genetic center. வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன்.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your inaugural address. We are waiting for Dr. B.M.Hegde, sir, to join soon. There are some difficulties for him to join the conference. So immediately when he is there, we will have him with us. Purifying myself from the burdens of imprints, I took the body then fallen on earth to just purify the imprints, says Swamiji Vethathiri Maharishi. What is imprints? Also, Shaktidharan sir mentioned about this. We are going to have a detailed study by Dr. Dhanapathy sir. The gap between the consciousness and we is nothing but the imprints. So how do we have the track? Who is having the track of these imprints? That is what is important. That is what is the secret in the philosophy as well, right? So that is the secret that we are going to get to know about it today. So for giving us the talk on Genetic Center, we have our veteran Vedathrian here, Dr. P.Dhanapathi, a veterinarian doctor by profession. Dr. P.Dhanapathi is an ardent Vedathrian. He is the president of the Karnataka zone, and his aim is to reach the masses in Karnataka in their local language. Dr. P.Dhanapathi, along with his family, they are selflessly serving the society by spreading Vethathiri Maharishi's simplified teachings to the world. I request Dr. P.Dhanapathi sir to proceed over.
வாழ்க வளமுடன். Can you hear me? வாழ்க வளமுடன்.
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Thank you, ma. வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். குரு வாழ்க, குருவே துணை. அருட்பேராற்றல் இரவும் பகலும் எல்லா நேரங்களிலும் எல்லா இடங்களிலும் எல்லா தொழில்களிலும் உறுதுணையாகவும் பாதுகாப்பாகவும் வழிநடத்துவதாகவும் அமையுமாக. Dear friends, a warm good evening to all. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Rabindranath, Director-R&D, for giving me the opportunity to speak on Genetic Center, a hypothetical expression of Swami Vethathiri Maharishi about the subject. Pranam to Dr. Shakti Karunanidhi, who has delivered
வாழ்க வளமுடன். தனபதியா. Dhanapathiya.
Audible. Dhanapathy sir, you're not audible.
No, he is some problem. I think he left. He is disconnected. Left from the session. It's maybe he will be rejoining. You may please contact Vijaya Dhanapathy. She may explain you, please.
Yeah.
Rabindranath, you can talk something. Rabindranath Ayya, I think he is on phone. Balchandraya, you may please engage the participant.
Rabindranath, is he audible?
Yes, audible, sir. Please.
All right, all right. Today, we seem to be very friendly with the net. We have difficulty in Dr. Hegde joining us, and now Dr. Dhanapati is not connected. Anyway, we will proceed with the blessings of Maharishi. See, this hypothesis of genetic center as the real headquarters of the human body is something unique which we have not heard in any other expressions, either spiritually or scientifically. And we see that the human body is having a physical body, an astral body, and a causal body. All the three bodies work in unison. Whatever the mind thinks, the body obeys. There is no gap between the two. And all the three, the physical, astral, and causal, act like a single unit. How? For this purpose, to synthesize all the three bodies to one, Maharishi proposes the genetic center. And in this genetic center is the center point, the center of gravity, you can say, of the physical body, correspondingly to the astral body, the midpoint in the astral body, and also in the causal body, the magnetic body. All the 3 points correspond to the one and the same. And the body, which consists of the 7 kadus and innumerable number of cells.
Rabindranath Ayya, sorry to interrupt you. Dhanapati has come.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Dhanapati, please carry on. Dr. Dhanapati.
Hello.
Carry on, carry on.
Yeah,
Continue.
yeah. Thank you. Sorry for the disturbance. Now I have joined through my phone, so I am not able to. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, very much.
Audible.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I am not able to share my PowerPoint presentation. Anyway, just I continue. Thank you so
Please,
much.
please. With the blessings of Maharishi, please continue.
Thank you so much. My pranam to Dr. Shakti Karunanidhi, who has delivered inaugural address, and pranam to those who are participating in this conference. First of all, let us understand the concept genetic center, the meaning of the genetic center. Swami Vethathiri Maharishi says in Tamil as Karumayam. When we ponder over the idea of genetic center in terms of philosophy, it is a center of truth. Karu means true basis, inner substance of anything in the universe. He says, Unmai Porul, Utkaruthu. The true substance or truth is appreciated as God or divinity. Since God is limitless, there is no center for it. But there must be a center when God is in limited functional state. So genetic center can be appreciated as the functional center of God. When we analyze the same concept with a scientific perspective, it is the place where the hereditary characters are stored. In other words, it is a point of activity which regulates and influences the inheritance. For understanding this concept, let us start with the primordial state of the universe. Swami Vethathiri Maharishi reveals that all-powerful primordial state of universe is space. The same is said to be gravity, stark force, unified force. In philosophical term, the same is appreciated as Brahman. It has the inherent inseparable nature of plenum, force, consciousness, and time. So the primordial is total consciousness. When the force of gravity crushed itself and emerges as formative dust particles and is called as ethereal particle or paramanu. The same compression exerts the surrounding pressure around each dust particle and also emerges as repulsive force. Because of compression and repulsion, the spinning dust particles are magnetized, and thus these particles are also called as magnetic particles or fundamental magnetism. In fact, the magnetic particles are the waves that fills the entire universe. This almighty, omnipresent, divine magnetic fluid which permeates everything in the universe is called as
Computer.
universal
The computer
magnetism. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can continue, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you, sir.
audible.
Thus, magnetism is the joint function of
Hello.
space and its wave. The magnetic particles and their aggregation results in energy particles, subsequently as atoms, 5 elements, planets, stars, galaxies, and the entire universe. Therefore, space itself has emerged as universe, and the universe is floating on universal magnetic fluid. In the universe, the same total consciousness is called as cosmic consciousness, wherein consciousness displays its order of function, that is, pattern, precision, and regularity. Let us understand how the living being is evolved from the universal magnetism. When 5 elements are maintaining their individuality and yet protecting and preserving one another, that in holistic proportion, a small organic mass may get a magnetic wave circulation of magnetic waves. According to the principle of specific gravity, and on account of surrounding pressure force of the divine state, these magnetic waves get intensified in the center of the mass as a concentrated wave pool and extend and interact with the universal magnetism. The interaction with the environment continuously characterizes the quality of the central pool, which becomes the genetic center. This is how an organic mass and can then evolve as a living being. The attractive force at the center of the living being becomes its genetic center. The magnetism functioning within a living being is biomagnetism, is termed as magnetic body. Magnetic body is also called as causal body, which is linked with the universal magnetism and the eternal space. Thus, the vortex of characterized magnetic body is genetic center, which is nothing but gravity. Let us understand the structure of the genetic center. The genetic center is emerged based on the magnetic circulation. The body is called as magnetic body. The number 2 is a physical body. Because of the magnetic body, the 5 elements are attracted and joined together, leads to the formation of physical body with all organs, including senses. In a small mass of 5 elements, when the flow of magnetism arranges the cells, it makes a magnetic circuit to protect its existence and coordinate metabolic functions. The emission points of biomagnetism from the physical body emerges each sense organs. Then third one is astral body. There is always a huge number of energy particles individually in circulation and traveling inside throughout the physical body of every living being. The energy particles are the group function of dust particles. Such a function of individual energy particles traveling throughout the physical body is totally called astral body or life force. Thus, genetic center is the single center for harmoniously existing magnetic, astral, and physical bodies. Next, we can understand how the genetic center is maturing. The seventh dhatu and essential chemical component of physical body is sexual vital fluid. The major portion of the sexual vital fluid is made in the brain. The life force particle in the physical body is based in the sexual vital fluid, which is a chemical compound of high potential and proportionate mixture of various essential ingredients designed to hold, charge, and protect the requisite quantity of life force particle. At the time of puberty, the surplus fluid is drawn to the genetic center. Then the genetic center is fully mature with the three aspects of biomagnetic intensity, life force intensity, a required amount of sexual vital fluid. The life force particles, after providing biomagnetism to the cells in the body, return to the genetic center in a depleted condition, where they immerse themselves in the sexual vital fluid for rejuvenation. The life force cannot remain in the body without its working center, sexual vital fluid. Let us understand the core of the genetic center. When we ponder over the core of genetic center, Swamiji clearly states that the inner core of genetic center is appreciated as divine state or Brahman. The same is appreciated as gravity. Next, we look about function of genetic center. The magnetism is the one which is inherent of both force and consciousness, and they are inseparable. Consciousness is an expression in terms of philosophy. Magnetism is an expression in terms of physics or matter. For our understanding, Swami Vethathiri Maharishi uses these two terms separately, but both are one and the same. Thus, it may be called as Chit Sakti or conscious force. When we talk in terms of force, the inner core of genetic center has inherent nature of self-compressive surrounding pressure called gravity, which holds together the life force, biomagnetism, and sexual vital fluid. This original force, gravity, has emerged as twofold force of attraction and repulsion. Thus has two functions as shrinking by compression, expanding by repulsion. The compression leads to imprints of karmas. That means it creates magnetic knots and they are stored. And the repulsion leads to the unfolding of karmic imprints. Thus, recording and displaying of karmas are happening due to the magnetic force. When we talk in terms of consciousness, the consciousness is nothing but divine state. Consciousness is itself characterized and modified, and the same is displayed as mind. Consciousness uses its inherent force and governs the formation, functions, and maintenance of physical, mental, spiritual activities through its order of function. Let us understand in detail about consciousness and mind in living beings. Consciousness evolves into the perceptual ability in living beings can be called as bioconsciousness. The extended psychic activity of consciousness is mind. The core of mind is said to be consciousness or primordial state or almighty.
Dhanapati sir.
You're muted, sir. Dhanapati sir, you're muted. Can you please
When
unmute?
consciousness is itself extended through biomagnetic field, it is said to be mind. The base of mind waves is nothing but consciousness. Consciousness is the radical universal principle, and mind is a phenomenon of momentary, transient concepts, feelings, and sensory perception. Consciousness is like a water, the mind is like wave of water. The distinction between consciousness and mind is that consciousness is totality and has no limitation, but mind is a limited action of consciousness. In other words, consciousness is omniscient witness or passive knower. Mind is the transient knowing activity of consciousness in living being. Now let us understand what is causal body. The magnetic body is also called causal body because it is a source for all physical, psychic function of living being. It transforms into mechanical, electrical, chemical phenomena. Magnetic body not only constructs the physical body with the brain and senses, but also uses them to function as mind. Thus, magnetic wave is the cause, medium, and also the agent. How is the characterization is happening? The impact is occurring in a genetic center according to the activities around it. Since every impact is a character, the genetic center is characterized accordingly. The fluctuations of the biomagnetic energy are shrunken in its waveform, reach the genetic center and characterize it. Every mental wave affects one's genetic center upon its origination and by being characterized by its object. Each such characterization is registered and stored to be released in time according to the environment and opportunity. The characters of all living beings in the world will be in the genetic center of a man. The characters are grouped as Sanchita, Prarabdha, and Akamiya karmas according to the period when they are accumulated. Now let us know how there is a transformation of genetic center. Genetic center is getting modified in every moment. All experiences shrink in waveform and becomes quality in genetic center. Even when the living being changes into any shapes, the genetic center gets respective modification in its form in accordance with the living being and finally reached specialized human form. Within every person, the characteristics of millions of species are inherent. When the mental frequency of human mind is changing, the characters of any living being in the genetic center may express. When the environment is relevant to the human mind, the characters and thoughts of few creatures will express as actions. Now let us understand the concept of soul. Since the genetic center is a compendium of all secrets of universe and imprints of karmas, it is termed as soul. What really is the character? In fact, the development of consciousness is character. This functional character of consciousness in all living beings is called soul. That's why Swami Vethathiri Maharishi used the terms soul and consciousness interchangeably. In other words, this characterized consciousness, which is inherent of biomagnetic domain, is soul or aham or ullam or atma. The concept called genetic center is called as soul in a spiritual context. Now let us understand the location of the soul, where actually the soul is located. The gene holds the compressed magnetic waveform of characters and qualities of living being. Thus, gene holds the soul. As the battery is serving as an accommodating vessel for electricity, the genes are the base of the soul. The genetic reproduction is affected by the centripetal force of the biomagnetism, which forms the seed. Within the seed, the pattern, precision, and regularity of the living being are magnetically encoded by the genetic process of nature. The centripetal force of the biomagnetism draws all the waves from outside through the senses to be stored in the magnetic field of the body generally and in the seed cells particularly. This conditions the genetic code. Thus, biomagnetism is the basis of procreation, genetic value, mind, pain, pleasure, need, and action. Now let us understand the network of mind. The living being or jiva means the combined functions of 8 faculties. Swami Vethathiri Maharishi reveals them as physical body, astral body, biomagnetic body, genetic center, brain, perceiving senses, mind, and soul. In other words, the network of mind includes these 8 integrated phenomena. In the absence of any one of these 8, there can be no function of mind. If there is no mind, there is no organism. The proliferation of genetic center. After the maturity of living being, if a progeny is produced, that will have its own genetic center with its inherited characters. In the genetic center of the progeny, all the magnetic records of the ancestral qualities and potentials will be transferred without omission. Thus, the soul is continuously modified in physical body after another through the chain of the hereditary link. In the natural process of biological reproduction, and the way it proliferates, amalgamates, and divides in the process of producing progeny. Disintegration of 3 bodies. The natural death happens when the entire sexual vital fluid drained out of the body, and thus the genetic center leaves physical body. After the death, the physical body attains changes in times and merges with 5 elements. The life force particles in it will merge with the life force particles in the entire universe. But the magnetic wave or genetic center will keep the emergence of its different forms, the functional specialties and qualities as stock, and thus it exists ever. Immortality of genetic center. Does soul is immortal entity? Let us understand this. There are 2 pathways in which the human soul continues its existence. One is by passing on to the progeny through the vehicle of chromosome. The other is after the soul leaves the body at death, the magnetic domain of soul gets attached with a living person who has appropriately similar characters to fulfill the balance of karmas. So the nature and contents are continuing from the primordial life to as on now. In the nature of evolution, that all people living on the planet Earth are only the proliferation of the one soul of the human, first human. As God is one, the living soul also is one. The soul is ever existing treasury, which starts its existence from the first organism evolved in the universe, function up to the present life experiences, and also will extend to several generations of progeny and ends its existence in divine state after purification of all evil qualities by its realization in man. Genetic center is the divine court of justice. The ultimate destination of soul is to get merged into the universal magnetism, but able to get dissolved until the unfulfilled desires and accumulated sinful karmas are purified. Every movement and action of nature has an appropriate result. In fact, there is no loss or pain caused by the action of nature. All sufferings and loss are only by the wrong actions of man due to undeveloped knowledge. The sinful karmas bring pain and good karmas bring pleasure, according to the law of cause and effect. This divine justice is rendered by genetic center through law of cause and effect during the journey of soul. The genetics centers are interconnected. Every living being is considered as temple of God because genetic center is powerful, universally linked potential and is connected with the genetic center of every living being, the centers of all the celestial bodies, and center point in every energy particle through the omnipresent space. Genetic center connects physical body and mind, individual and society, man and planets, man's previous and future birth, and also man and Brahman. Because of genetic center is functioning in contact with the entire universe through universal magnetism, the contents in mind or the genetic center of man will reflect in all living beings. But why are they not able to feel these subtle contents? Because these living beings, including man, involved in their personal activities through peripheral mind. The governance of divine consciousness. Consciousness is omnipresent, radical, and universal principle. Prior to the emergence of particles and also within the particles, the supreme universal being, the total consciousness exists as latent. The total consciousness which is functioning in the universe as cosmic consciousness, which regulates the force in the universe and works as its precise order of function without prejudice. That is pattern, precision, regularity. This is also called as mind of God. The universal magnetism is observing all the characters and qualities of every moment, action, shape, and image of everything in the universe by its own wave system, and also supplying all the requisite qualities and character to anything as to the time and need. This is also appreciated as Akashic record. The localized activity of this cosmic consciousness in living being through genetic center is appreciated as bioconsciousness. Thus, total consciousness extends its perceptual activities through the biomagnetic field of the organism and feels every incoming clash of wave as pain, pleasure, peace, or ecstasy. Now, we can understand that divine consciousness is functioning through its powerful universal magnetism and biomagnetism. In a living being, the total consciousness is functioning as super consciousness and has built physical body in the womb through seed cells in genetic center, transforms the food into 7 tissues systematically and maintains the physical psychic function. It is functioning as subconscious mind through brain as memory machine. It is also functioning as peripheral conscious mind through senses. Now let us understand about the purification of genetic center. Reasons for the impurity of genetic center. Genetic center is getting impure due to ego, 6 temperaments, 5 cardinal sins, grabbing others' property and freedom, involving in violence, telling lies, harming women, and not observing moderation in food, work, rest, sex, and thoughts, etc. Now we know that divine consciousness itself has self-transformed to the present state of our peripheral material consciousness, which is entangled with the pain and pleasure. If one is interested to come out of pain and pleasure cycle and move towards peace and ecstasy, first he needs to purify evil karmic imprints in his biomagnetism, through which he can transform himself to the level of divine consciousness and so enjoy the peace and ecstasy. The methods of purification are expiation. It means repenting, consoling, and compensating the losses incurred to anyone by us. Number 2 is superimposition. It means imposing the performance of good deeds to counter the effects of evil deeds like sick temperamental moods. The third method is neutralization. It is a process of totally removing evil karmas through meditation and transform into divine consciousness. We can realize the divine consciousness by meditation. Actually, human being has the capacity to navigate from peripheral to subconscious and to superconscious. How can he obtain the skill of moving to all the planes of consciousness? When one meditates on Agna, after the energy is raised from Muladhara, can travel from peripheral sensory conscious mind towards the subconscious mind, which links the mind to the soul. The subconscious mind possesses subtler functional waves. So this will be in unison with the brains of all the living beings and human beings, and gets their functional reflections as perception and extends them to reach conscious mind. It has a great capacity to reflect and show all the visuals and feelings from birth and the functional perceptions in all living being in the world. Here, one realizes the mind and get connected to the soul will be in the alpha wave mental frequency. This state of mind is also said to be pranamaya kosa. One can purify akamya karma. When one meditates on Turiya and can reach the state of superconscious mind called as Perarivu, which links the mind with the universal force, this state of mind is called as Aham or Ullam. It functions with subtler waves vibration in connection with all the events of vast universe. The superconscious mind blossoms the secret of universe as perception in conscious mind by spreading through subconscious mind whenever gets opportunity. This kind of perception is called as intuition. Thus, the sixth sense works through the mind to perceive all ideas, communications, and memories, receives intuition, and is the link with the universal magnetism. Here, one realizes the soul and get connected to universe will be oscillating between alpha and theta wave mental frequency. This state of mind is said to be Vijnanamaya Kosa. Here, one can purify prarabdha karma. When initiated to Turiya, which links the mind with the state of Brahman, total consciousness, the source of all the stages of consciousness. Here, one realizes the mind of God and get connected to primordial Brahman. He will be oscillating between theta and delta wave mental frequency. This state of mind is said to be Anandamaya Kosha. Here, one can purify Sanchita Karma. Human consciousness will be in inactive state if totally merges with the primordial state. This state is said to be unconscious mind or the state of Brahman or withdrawn state. One will reach this state when one focuses to realize one's original true state. After coming back from this state only, one can assume that he is nothing but Brahman and realize that consciousness is God, divine state. This realization only can result in moral life with complete satisfaction. With this, I want to conclude. Through the tool of Sky Yoga, one can realize his true state called divine state and lead happy, harmonious life with complete satisfaction. For the realization of divine state, realizing genetic center is a must. With this, I conclude my presentation on the subject. Thank you so much for everyone. Be blessed by the divine. Thank you so much for everyone. Be blessed by the divine. வாழ்க வளமுடன்.
Be blessed by the divine. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for an enlightenment. We are always excited to know about us, our story, right? It is amazing to know who we are and how we are evolved till today. The consciousness at all the stages of our evolution. The one multiplied into many, we are just the one, not even a drop compared to the ultimate consciousness. But still, we are connected to that one, almighty, divine consciousness, whatever we say. This connection is made with the unbreakable chain genetic center. Such an enlightenment. Only scientists can understand this. Our Swamiji, with his generosity, made it so simple even for a common man like me to understand and experience it. Thank you, Professor Dr. Dhanapathy sir, for giving us this experience of understanding the divine consciousness.
Thank you, ma'am.
We are unfortunate, we are still trying to connect Dr. B.M.Hegde sir. There are some technical issues. He's not able to join us now. We are still expecting at least he could join us and bless us today. So for the concluding speech, yeah, as we said, we are having difficulties for many of them to join today's meeting. So I request Dr. Rabindranath sir, the Director of R&D, for giving the concluding session. Doctor, please.
Now, having heard, I'm audible, is it?
Yes.
Right. Having listened to Dr. Dhanapathy explaining all the aspects of the genetic center, how the three vertices of the physical body, astral body, and the causal body unite together. When these three bodies remain separate, the center of the each body acquires special characteristics. This physical body being made up of the 7 tadus, the intensified center of the physical body is occupied by the vital fluid, the sexual vital fluid. This being the heavy, and it is closest to the center and in and around the center. And in the astral body, the life force particles circulate, and this vertex system has an intensified center which is occupied by the slowest of the life force particles. And the slowest means it is something like if you imagine the causal body, the waves, it will be easily understood. The waves, the delta waves around the genetic center, ranging from 4, 3, 2, 1, and becoming space. In a similar way, the astral body, in the astral body, the life force particles, which are independently self-rotating and also rotating in the body from the genetic center to the periphery and back to the genetic center. Here at the center, you have the life force particles lying close to each other like a sheet of life force particles. This intense accumulation of the life force particles give a special nature to this part of this portion of the astral body. And in the causal body, it is almost from beta to alpha, alpha to theta, and theta to delta, and in the delta, it is from 4 to almost 1, or 1 to 0. So, if you imagine closer to the center of the genetic center, you have the intense, the most potent of the physical body, the vital fluid, and in the astral body, the life force particles which have more pure space in them and less divine dust particles. And those divine dust particles are also a very slow rotation, and anytime they become the space. And in the astral body, in the causal body, it is the waves that are 1 to 0. These waves are described as stationary waves, and when they remain stationary, the picture they can take from the experiences is almost complete and remains for a longer time. When the frequency of the delta wave comes to 4, 3, 2, 1, it is almost an absolute space that is taking place. One step inside towards the center is absolute space, and one step away from it is the moving one. So in the genetic center, you have these 3 special parts of the 3 bodies: the vital fluid, the going to become space life force particles lying closer to each other with maximum intensity, and the waves which are almost going to stop. So all the 3 bodies have absolute space as the center of their bodies, and the space is all permeable, all pervading, and it has no place to limit. And these 3 centers are being one and the same matter, absolute space. They unite together, and this is how the 3 bodies unite, and this is giving the speciality. On the center, you have a stationary point, absolute space, And on the periphery, you have the maximum velocity moving. The, of the seven torus, it is the juice which is light and spreading easily all over the body. And in the astral body, it is the absolute space and the life force particles around near the genetic center containing more of the absolute space and less of the divine dust, rotating divine dust particles. So the life force particles near the genetic center, they have more of absolute space and they have more of divinity. And this area of the astral body is more divine. And this is appreciated when we look into the Pancha Goshas, the Annamaya Gosha, the Pranamaya Gosha, the Manomaya Gosha, Vijnanamaya Gosha, and the bliss body and the center. So it is like that. And the causal body, when the wave frequency becomes less and less and less, the imprints which were taken at the sensual organs, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and the skin. Those imprints taken by the magnetic waves which are circulating, they come to the center. This magnetic circulation and the life force circulation has a peculiarity which you have to appreciate. And let me explain that. Nearer the genetic center, the central portion of the body, the specific gravity is high, the density is more, and particles cannot move fast. They have to negotiate through the intensified center, and so the speed is much less. And the waves are also contracted in a contracted form. Each biomagnetic wave, as it emerges from the genetic center, it is in the compressed form. And as it moves away from the genetic center to the periphery, it becomes expanded. When an emergent biomagnetic wave gets released from the genetic center, it takes an imprint with equal wavelength and the frequency. That wave, that imprint gets attached to this emergent wave, and as this wave expands, moves into the body towards the periphery, it gets expanded, it opens out, it gets expanded. And as it expands, the imprint also gets expanded. And when it comes to the brain, it is shown in the screen light. And we become obvious of what the imprint was. And when the wave, after reaching the brain, the head, moves back to the genetic center. And when it moves back, the opposite phenomenon takes place. That is, the waves take the imprints through the sense organs and they move towards the genetic center. As they move towards the genetic center, they have to pass through high resistance of the central portion of the around the genetic center. So the speed comes down and it gets contracted also, compressed also. When the biomagnetic wave is compressed to a dot, the imprint which was in that copy taken at the sense organ gets crushed, crumbled to form a knot, and both the biomagnetic wave and the imprint, that is the Xerox copy of what we have experienced through the five senses. They get crushed, crumpled together to form a knot. And this is the magnetic knot. And this gets deposited in the center of the genetic center. If you have a close look at the genetic center, there is a stationary point of absolute space in the center, and you have the moving path adjacent to this thing. Both are separated by an interface where the non-moving part of the absolute space and the moving part of the three bodies, they meet together. This portion acquires a unique importance. The experiences taken by the sense organs are brought to the genetic center. They get separated from the biomagnetic waves and they are dropped into the genetic center, interface of the genetic center, where all the experiences of one and even his journey of consciousness, even his previous births and other things, they are all deposited in the genetic center. And when the egg or yolk are being formed by the ovary and testes, which are located very close to the genetic center, they take a Xerox print of all the imprints in the genetic center, and that is given to the sperm or ovum, which when becomes a progeny, has the contents of the genetic center, a Xerox print of it, and which becomes the capital of the new life, newborn. So the structure of the genetic center facilitates the storage of all our experiences in the genetic center. These imprints are magnetic in their character. They retain their frequency and the wavelength. And so they are with the natural magnetic attraction and repulsion, just like divine dust particles within a life force particle remaining separate, not getting united to each other. These imprints in the genetic center suspended, each are separately separate in that retaining their identity with the frequency and the wavelength, and they are all magnetically charged according to the nature of the imprint. So when you are in a universal magnetic field, this biomagnetic field is subjected and in relation and in equilibrium with the universal magnetism. Polarizes has an impact on the genetic center when the imprints are rearranged according to the nature of the universal magnetism, which is surrounding the biomagnetism, which is in communication with this. So the imprints in the genetic center are individualistic and they are aligned with their attraction and repulsion properties. And because of the interaction between the universal magnetism and the biomagnetism, the imprints in the genetic center, they are in constant flux. There is a change in the architecture of the imprints, the stored in the way it is stored. If you are in a divine satsang, your genetic center will have imprints related to the satsang, the spiritual activity. They will come to the surface and the others will go to the deeper layers. And when an emergent wave comes, a biomagnetic wave crosses the genetic center. It picks up that cell imprint, which was of similar nature to the universal magnetism. And so you get a thought similar to that, and you get a orientation similar to that. This is so beautiful and fine that we always have an equilibrium with the universal magnetism and also with our own genetic center imprints. So these three are in change, constant change according to the universal magnetism. The biomagnetism is also subject to change depending upon your activity, the food you have taken, and the mind, all determine the imprints, the contents, the causal body. So there also you get the change. And if you look into the astral body, the life force particles, as they leave the genetic center to circulate in the body, they have the maximum number of divine dust particles, and as they travel from genetic center to periphery, they absorb more of divine dust particles. They have, as they were coming down to the genetic center, the number of dust particles were minimal, and when they move out, there is a relatively capacity to absorb life of divine dust particles, and they get into this thing. And when the life force particle gets the full coat of divine dust particles, it gets the maximum power. It is the most liveliest state of the life force particle. So they start that travel with a full coat of dust particles, and as they leave, the wave gets, the life force particle gets accelerated because of the thinning out of the gravity from the genetic center to the periphery. And this allows the faster dust particles to leave the life force particle. When a considerable number of dust particles leave the life force particle, it becomes weaker and slower. So it is not able to proceed further. So it curves back to with a reduced speed, velocity, and depletion of the life force particles comes back to the genetic center. See this wonderful arrangement. When they reach the genetic center, they are deficient in the dust particles, and when they cross this thing, you have vital fluid also there, increase in sexual vital fluid also there, and the dust life force particles, they take a dip into this and then emerge. As they go up, the energy they have taken from the vital fluid adds their attractive power, and they attract more number of dust particles are available in the closer zones, in the delta zone and the theta zones of the body, the causal body and astral body. So the life force particle has maximum number of particles as it leaves the distance, and the velocity also increases, and the wave, biomagnetic wave, as it reaches the genetic center, gets compressed, and when it leaves the distance, as it moves away from the genetic center, it opens up and expands. So this unique nature of contraction and expansion of the life force particle circulation and biomagnetic circulation creates wonders of dust particles which come out of the life force particles, they merge with the space to become magnetism. And the waves which are moving from the periphery of the body towards the center, they take the images which become imprints and are deposited. So, genetic center not only unites the three bodies, but also facilitates a movement of the imprints from the genetic center to the periphery of the body, to the senses and to the experiences and understanding and living, and again moves back, taking new imprints to the genetic center. So this nature of imprints having retaining that specific property are responsible for the cause and effect system to operate. The imprints are all getting deposited in the genetic center, and the universal magnetism in equilibrium with the biomagnetism rearranges, repolarizes the genetic center imprints deposited area and selects a suitable this thing. So this explains why we get a particular area at a particular time. This also explains how the core of the body works. And this way of activity makes it possible for different experiences to be obtained by way of emerging imprints. They create the wave and the experience, and the mind acts on it. And whatever activity of the mind that has taken place, the perception of the five sense organs, they are taken back to the genetic center and deposited. This much of complicated yet perfect, never changing, never failing activity is taking place in the genetic center, and this gives way for the protean ways in which the human being behaves, acts. So this is the genetic center which Swamiji has described, and this connects the science as well as spirituality. Our karma theory is has been detailed from the ancient scriptures to the latest yoga system, spiritual system, but it never explains where this karma is stored in the body and how they unfailingly mature as explained in the cause and effect system. So you cannot withhold any fact from the genetic center, for according to this place where you are, the magnetism, universal bio gets whatever buried imprints which you didn't want to appear, they come up and they mature. Unfailingly, the frequency of the incoming biomagnetic wave and the emerging wave decides what one will experience. So this, if you understand this, you can understand how the genetic center works, and Maharishi has explained it in a beautiful way. He says this is divine court of justice. It is the unfailing witness for your activities, and it produces changes, the mutation or the other this thing. All activities are as a result of this functioning of the genetic center. I have doubts whether people have understood this complicated process. Let us see in the question and answer session how much we can, how much people have understood and how much we can answer our difficult questions of life. With this, let me conclude, paving way for the question and answer session.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, it is the complicated process, but it is really amazing. The journey of consciousness in evolution, the role of universal magnetism to connect everything in the universe, and very much closely associated with biomagnetism, coordinating with physical body, mind, life force, and the soul. Sir, one thing we understand from your conclusion, whatever we think, speak, do, everything has been recorded and maintained
100%.
properly.
100%.
Yes, everything has been recorded and maintained properly. That is the result of whatever is happening to us. Action is in our hands, but result is not at all in our hands. It is the divine's result as per your karma theory, which you have explained to us. We can never escape from this at all. Thank you so much, sir, for reciting Swamiji's philosophy very scientifically and very simple manner. We are all very happy to have this session, to have an enlightenment. Thank you. So before getting into the discussion session, there are some announcements. There is a link of WhatsApp group that has been given in the chat box. All of you can, whoever are interested to be part, who are interested to travel with us in this journey of Consciousness 360 can register, join this WhatsApp group. And also there is the link for feedback form that has been given in the chat box. You can give your feedback. Feedbacks will help us to improve our system. And also we have the links for the previous sessions. You can just get into Vethathiri Maharishi Kundalini Yoga channels from Facebook as well as YouTube channel. You can get all the previous sessions of Consciousness 360 available in this two platforms. You can also avail the services. Thank you so much. And now the session is open for all of you to ask your questions. We have our professors here for answering your questions. You can raise your hands to ask your questions. Janaki Raman, sir?
Yeah. Thank you so much for the great, beautiful, wonderful speech. I think thanks to Dr. Dhanapathi and the team. I think it's a great, excellent journey today. One question I have, I don't know whether the right forum to